All right, thank you for joining. It is 12:15. We're going to get started here. My name is Dexter Bradford. I'm an attorney here at Beresford booth, and we're going to be talking about avoiding and defending workplace discrimination lawsuits. So this should be beneficial for you if you're an employer, a manager, business owner of any small, medium, or large size business in the Washington area, especially, or even outside of Washington. So before we get into the meat and potatoes, I did want to talk about why this topic matters, why this is so important. Workplace discrimination lawsuits can be certainly very, very costly. It could cost you thousands, if not millions of dollars, depending on the complexity of the lawsuit. They can damage your reputation as an employer, and they are incredibly time consuming. Business owners especially don't have the time they're already stretched thin. You're already dealing with a million fires. This is the last thing you need to be dealing with. So there are simple steps that you can take as an employer to set yourself up for success, so you're not having to deal with, hopefully, as many of these lawsuits, hopefully none at all. So Washington State also specifically has some additional protections that you as an employer should be aware of. So you can go ahead and take extra precautions to make sure you're not going to be dealing with, hopefully, any of these lawsuits. But if you are, we'll talk a little bit about how you can best defend it as well. So just some key laws to know. You're, of course, required to know the federal laws, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, Americans with Disabilities Act, Age Discrimination, Equal Pay Act. If you're an employer in Washington State, you're probably already familiar with these if you're an employer or manager in general. You should also be aware of the Washington Law Against Discrimination. This provides additional protections for employees in Washington State that you should be aware of if you're conducting business here. And what are those? Well, the federal ones, the federal protected classes, these are the classes of people, if they fit into this category, you cannot discriminate against them or you can get sued. Race, color, religion, national origin, sex, age, disability, and genetic information are covered federally. Washington State adds also marital status, sexual orientation, and gender identity, your veteran or military status, and interestingly enough, the use of a service animal. So those are additional 4 ones in Washington to watch out for. Additional 4 classes that you might not have been aware of. So the most common types of discrimination cases that attorneys will see come across their desk are going to be for race discrimination, gender discrimination, and disability discrimination. Those are probably the big 3 that you'll see most commonly. And what you can do to avoid this as an employer, I've got 3 steps for you here that you can take to help prevent these lawsuits from coming in the door. Now, these 3 things are incredibly simple for you to do. They don't take too much time out of your day, and they can help save you thousands of dollars and time in the future. One is just have a clear anti-discrimination policy in your employee handbook. If you don't have a handbook, I can help you write one. Give me a call. And I'll make sure to put that in your handbook. But just having the policy is the first step to making sure that you're covered here. Having a written policy shows that you as an employer care, you have a policy, and you're making an effort to avoid any sort of discriminatory behavior. Second, and this second point gets more and more important the more your business grows, is employee training. That's because as your business grows, you as the owner or employer or manager are going to have less control over a larger number of people in the business. You're going to be trusting more and more people to be doing your work for you, to be managing the business, and hoping that those managers and other people are not going to be actively discriminating against anyone. So the more your business grows, the more employee training you're going to need. And it sounds really monotonous and tedious, but just making sure that people, your employer, your managers understand the basics of these types of lawsuits and what they need to do to avoid them is key to making sure that you don't have any of these lawsuits arise. Now, the third point is consistency in your application of policies. And we'll talk again about why this is so important later. But consistency is really important. because you need to have your policies all be applied the same way across the board. You need to make sure that if you actually have a policy, that all of your managers are actually implementing that policy the same way. And then additionally, just to add a fourth one here, it's document everything. As an employer, you should document every little complaint, every little thing that comes in the door. If you had a conversation with someone where they talked about feeling discriminated against, talk to them about it, put it in a memo, save it to an employee file. Everything should be documented. Written documentation is your best friend when it comes to these types of lawsuits. So what do you do when you hear about a complaint or need to investigate a complaint? First of all, if someone is complaining that they feel they're being discriminated against, treated unfairly based upon any of those protected classes, the first thing you should do is take it seriously. Create a clear procedure in your employer handbook. Make sure your managers know about it for how to handle these complaints. So you want to know that if a person comes to a manager in your office, that the manager knows what to do if a complaint is brought up, that they have a preset procedure down and they're ready to go. They have essentially a guidebook as to how to handle complaints and what they're supposed to do. Second, I've already mentioned it, but yeah, take all of these complaints very seriously. Some of them may sound silly. A lot of them will probably sound silly to you or your managers. Things that may seem ridiculous, though, can often lead to expensive lawsuits. And then, as I've mentioned already, document everything. The second someone comes in to say, I have a complaint or makes a fuss about something, you want to make sure you're documenting what it is that they're complaining about and any sort of reaction that your manager has to it or anyone else in the office has. Now, it's also important if there is an event or something that transpired that there are witnesses talked to. So if there was an event at work, something happened, and now an employee is claiming that they feel discriminated against, make sure you talk to anyone that witnessed the event and get their side of the story as well. Write it down and again, document it. So what do you do then? That's what you could do to help prevent a discrimination claim. But be honest, if you're an employer, it's almost inevitable that you're going to get sued at some point. You can try your best, and oftentimes I work with employers who try their best and are honest, good working, hard people that still get sued and tripped up with these laws. So what do you do when the inevitable day comes that you do get sued or you're facing a discrimination claim? First, acknowledge receipt of any sort of formal communication they get. If you get a complaint filed or reached out to by an opposing attorney or the individual threatening that they're going to sue, let them know that you're going to respond, but don't give them any additional information. Talk to your attorney first. Talk to me, talk to an employment attorney. They will walk you through next steps and how to respond and what you need to do to respond. Additionally, if there's any sort of federal or state agencies involved with an investigation, cooperate with them as well. So once you get your attorney involved, the next thing you're going to be doing is working with that attorney to build your defense. And like I said, I've been saying documentation is important. Thorough documentation is the first thing your employee or your attorney is going to be asking for. So make sure you have your ducks in a row, your documents ready. You can go back and pull that. If there's an employment lawsuit popping up or discrimination lawsuit, you can pull that particular employee's file and you've got plenty of documents ready to go to dispute any sort of claim that they're making. And then additionally, witness testimonies. If the discrimination lawsuit is about a particular event that happened, again, make sure you've talked, or if you haven't already, go talk to any witnesses of that event. Get their side of the story and take their testimony down, put it in a memo, document it again. And then I also want to mention that be open to the idea of alternative dispute resolution. Oftentimes when I talk to employers, you're thinking about defeating this claim in court. And while that's great, maybe you do have a great defense to this lawsuit. Maybe you do have a rock solid defense. Oftentimes that can be more costly than simply settling outside of court. So be open to the idea of discussing this with your attorney. And even though you may have a solid defense, it might actually save you significant time and money at the end of the day to consider mediation or a settlement early on in the lawsuit. So just a quick example case study. Let's look at a particular scenario. Let's say you've got an employee who claims that they were denied a promotion due to their gender. So the employer's position, you, the employer, are going to say that no, that was not the case. You were denied this promotion due to performance metrics, and another candidate was more qualified. Great. So that was your side of the story. Their side of the story is no, it was because of my gender. So your key defense points, this is what you're going to talk about with your attorney, is documents. First, where are your documents? If this is our story that, hey, this decision was made based upon performance metrics, well, do we have documents showing your performance reviews? Do we have documents of your performance reviews showing that you were less qualified for this position than the person who got it? If we have clear documents saying, look, here are your metrics, here's the other person's metrics, this one was significantly better than yours, and yours were much worse, then you have a pretty good defense already off the bat. Again, this is why documents are important. Next, make sure that you're thinking about the consistency again here. If your company has a policy about hiring based on certain metrics, make sure that that's all applied consistently throughout your business. For example, if you go and the person actually shows that this policy is not really enforced, and that actually a lot of the employees who aren't meeting these metrics are getting these promotions, that weakens your case a little bit. So again, make sure consistency is key. Make sure you're consistent in applying the policies that you set up as an employer. It can help protect you in a lot of these cases. So some final tips before we go, just on how to protect your business. Conduct regular audits. Again, this is a tip for as your business is growing. Make sure you're auditing yourself. Make sure you're conducting internal investigations. Making sure your policies, like I said, are being enforced consistently across the board, and that your managers, mid-level managers, lower managers, whatever size your business is at, they're all aware of your policies and your procedures on what to do if there is a complaint. Consult legal counsel. The second you have a question about anything, if you have second thoughts or there's a voice in the back of your mind going, I'm not 100% sure that this action that we're about to take isn't discriminatory or isn't going to violate some law, call your attorney. It'll save you thousands of dollars in the long run if you just pick up the phone and give them a ring. I take calls like that all the time. They're short, usually short, sweet, to the point, and it can often save you so much headache in the future. Finally, make sure you have insurance. This type of lawsuit is almost inevitable if you're going to run a successful business, and facing it can be costly and time consuming. There is insurance to cover these sort of things that can ease the burden of having to pay for them, and help alleviate any sort of stress that one of these lawsuits might pop up and put you out of business while you're still smaller. So consider getting some EPLI insurance to cover these sorts of claims. Now, if you have any sort of questions, I love this type of work. You can give me a call at this number here, 425-776-4100, or send me an email. I'd be happy to talk. Thanks.